one of the things we're fighting is there's always a lag in where people think we are and where we are. You know, there's always like a 2-year lag. We're still basically, we just basically finished the 2016 election in terms of people's perception. Am I right about this? Right. We basically, because for a while we were like, who's Ball, Bernie, Hillary, blah, 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 da, da, da. We were doing that for like a year.
I think we're getting ready to roll. Sorry about that delay. We were trying to figure out Ronnie and we're not able to have it.
We'll get them another time.
Yeah, for sure. But I apologize for the delay.
So you're gonna point at me when we're ready?
Yep, I'll catch you.
The Democratic Party exists for the American people.
The United Democratic Party is our greatest strength.
We have the right policy to stand on the side of justice.
This is a moment for activism.
You're never too young to stand up.
We can change the world.
We need you.
Yeah,
that's
be
right.
involved.
That's it. Get out there and fight.
Hey, everybody. This is Keith Ellison, Deputy Chair of the Democratic National Committee, and today we're here with some heroes who are going to talk about what it means to stand up for safety, what it means to stand up to the National Rifle Association, and how to create an America where everybody can live without having fear of being shot down. Let me introduce you to awesome young people. You know what? Can we do another start? Are we going live? No. Sorry, everybody. So I'd like to introduce to you Colin Clements and Sarah Clements and Colin Goddard. Would you guys introduce yourselves this morning?
Sure. Thanks for having us on here. My name's Colin Goddard. I was a survivor of the 2007 Virginia Tech shooting. I was shot 4 times in that shooting and survived. Learning what I did about gun laws, outraged me, just like so many of the students we're seeing now from Florida, and I wanted to get actively involved in making a change. So I spent the next 8 years of my life here in D.C. lobbying Congress and then working in a bunch of state capitals to try to affect policy change to put new laws on the books, and had a great, fantastic time doing that, building the gun safety movement, and I'm now excited to see what more progress we can make.
Absolutely. And Sarah Clements, you were touched by gun violence, unfortunately. Talk a little bit about what brings you to the table today.
Sure. So in 2012, I was a junior at Newtown High School. I'm from Newtown, Connecticut, and my mom survived the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School on December 14th. She's a second grade teacher at Sandy Hook, and her whole class survived the shooting, but many of her colleagues and 20 children were killed. And that day absolutely changed our lives, and similar to Colin, I pretty immediately felt the need to work for change as a way to personally move forward and heal, and that just became a personal commitment to gun violence prevention activism up to this day and probably moving forward. And Colin was actually one of the first people that I met in the first action that I ever did here in DC about a month after the Sandy Hook shooting. I met him at a march on the Capitol, and he was the first survivor that I met outside of Newtown. So it's great to be here sitting with Colin 5 years later.
Well, we're grateful to both of you. Also, heroes like Ronnie Mosley, who was going to join us for but some technical things came up, but Ronnie was ready to go. Mm-hmm. He's been trying to bring sense and justice to this issue in Chicago for years. And also Sammy Rahamim, who is a neighbor of mine in Minnesota, lost his father to gun violence. So many young people and not so young people getting active now, and it seems a little bit like after this current tragedy that we just saw in Florida, that things seem a little bit different. Can you all talk? What do you think? Does it seem like maybe this time we can mobilize to get real change?
Every time something like this happens, it brings up just the whole range of emotions, right? This is not the first time we've seen another horrible tragedy unfold on television. And, it brings that same sense of outrage that, these things are still happening, and yet we've done nothing of substance as a country, and we have to do that, and we know that every time something like this happens, more and more Americans realize something has to be done differently and brings more people in. You know, we always get that question of, is this the one? I don't know what that's going to be. I don't know if there's anything that can shake America immediately change. But the thing is, the nature of what we need to do to change this is not something that can be done overnight, right? This is a complex issue that requires multifaceted approach with a variety of, a network of strong laws and policies that's going to take a time. This is a marathon and not a sprint, but we need to take that outrage and funnel it towards the grassroots activism that needs to happen in order to get different people in seats, to get the votes we need, to get the policies we deserve.
Yeah, you know, Colin, that's I like you saying that, because even if we were to somehow get one bill passed, it wouldn't solve the problem.
Right.
So I'm glad you're framing it that way, that we got to keep going. But I think, though, Sarah, you did make the point that there's something about these kids, something about the messaging they brought that has added something to this movement for gun safety. You want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, I've been working specifically in youth activism in gun violence prevention for about 5 years now, and I can say that I personally feel something different this time. I, again, can't say whether or not it'll be the thing that moves Congress, but these students who literally, like, the day of and the day after the shooting in Parkland took to Twitter, took to Facebook, took to the tools that they know how to use better than anybody else, and told their stories and unapologetically spoke out. And the mass movement of students at the school and in Broward County in Florida is something that I've never seen in the direct aftermath of a mass shooting at a school shooting. And I think they're being extremely smart, extremely strategic in their messaging. They are, like I mentioned, unapologetically speaking out against, and the people that they're specifically targeting are members of Congress who have taken millions of dollars each election cycle from the NRA. They are targeting the NRA, and through that, they are specifically going after the money.
Let me just say, I'm extremely proud that I have an F rating from the NRA.
Exactly. They're sending the message that it's no longer cool to have an A rating from the NRA.
Yeah, that's like a bad thing to
It's
have.
a bad thing now. And that is a culture shift. That's something that our movement has been working for years and years, and I'm just hoping that we've built a foundation for these students to now take it a whole step forward.
Well, absolutely. You know, you were talking, Colin, earlier about how this debate really has shifted over the course of time. You want to elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, I'm sure Sarah can also understand, you know, when we entered this movement, myself in 2009 and Sarah in 2012, we didn't have a network of grassroots chapters and organizations in all 50 states that were hosting gun safety lobby days in state capitals, every part of the country. You know, we didn't have a survivor network of survivors of gun violence who want to speak up and share their stories and educate other survivors about how to get involved in advocacy, how to share your story. You know, and as well, you know, I came up to that 2009, you know, came to Congress. I wanted to, you know, very much that same kind of energy that we're seeing now, and thought that this, you know, what we need to do is so simple, so clear, right? We can just come up here, have some conversations, get this done. And doing that, having these conversations was, you know, realized how kind of stuck this issue was in 2000, how much of a third rail it was. Even so that, you know, some of the Democratic offices I walked into told me, I support you, but don't make me get into this fight now until I absolutely have to. That was a hard thing to watch. Now, the Democrats are all on this. They understand now, you know, this issue is life and death, and this is something that they have to support. And we're fortunately seeing more Republicans than we had in 2009, also realizing that, hey, we can't just be saying no to this stuff all the time. This is not long-term tenable. So this is just night and day now from where we are to where, you know, kind of it was in 2009. And, you know, that is a result of people like Sarah getting involved and millions of Americans waking up and realizing that they have to be an active part of the solution, because, you know, we just can't be, you know, members of Congress, you know, can have things help, you know, kind of personally move them, right? But another big, massive influence is the overwhelming majority of their constituencies asking them and demanding that they do something and voting them in or voting them out because of that.
Hey, I say, if you can't change the people's hearts, change the people, right?
Yep,
and
absolutely right.
And that is legit in a democracy. Sarah, you were said to me that the young people got some things planned. Do you want to talk about anything?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that is specifically being spearheaded by the students in Florida right now is called the March for Our Lives. It's going to take place on March 24th. It's a Saturday, and they're going to be leading a massive march in Washington, D.C., as well as a rally. And I know that there are smaller marches being planned in other states around the country as well. So folks should definitely tap into that online on Facebook. And if they're not able to make it to DC for the big march, definitely work on planning a state and local one. There also is a student-led national school walkout taking place. It's being hosted by the Women's March and the Brady Campaign, among other amazing organizations. That is going to be on March 14th. It's a Wednesday, and I know that there are walkouts being planned on high school and college campuses all over the country, as well as some grade school teachers and students as well. So that day is also something to keep on the radar.
And your mom's a grade school teacher.
Yes, and my mom is actually helping to organize a walkout in Newtown, as well as a massive gathering of educators to show support from Newtown educators to Parkland educators. And that show of support and that sign is just an incredible show of love and solidarity. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out.
I had the chance to meet your mom.
Yes.
She's delightful.
She's here right now.
She's actually here. Can we shout out Mom? Hey, Mom. And she's so proud of you, you know, and I tell you, it really is beautiful to see families, you know, stepping up to protect families.
Yep.
You know, Ronnie Mosley, who was about to be here, but for our technical difficulties, actually, he had a friend who put himself in the line of fire to protect a friend, a loved one. People are making major sacrifices to try to protect people that they shouldn't have to make every day, you know, but they're now saying we're going to change the politics of this country, and it takes a massive lift to do it. Let me ask you this: what are some of the key issues? I mean, we thought, you know, if we change? Are there 3 or 4 things that if we changed them, it would actually change the situation? Anything in particular you guys have in mind?
I mean, I'll start at this in that, you know, like I said earlier, right, there needs to be a strong network of laws in place in the federal level and the state level to really tackle the multifaceted nature of gun violence that deals with the mass shootings, that deals with the everyday gun violence we see, that deals with domestic violence, that deals with suicides, that deals with accidental child shootings. I mean, there are so many ways that America has problems with guns and shootings that it's not just one thing, right?
Right.
We know, though, through research and through talking to members of law enforcement, that the single most effective policy that we can push on a national level is to close the background check loophole and require background checks on all gun sales that are happening in this country. It makes no sense that you can sell a gun to someone you don't know without requiring them to go through a check and knowing if they can legally own a gun first, right? So
I couldn't sell you a car and not know who you are, and not have no license, no insurance, no registration of the vehicle.
Right. So, you know, the background checks is something that I think is the closest kind of low-hanging fruit, so to speak, on a national level. And we've seen since Newtown, so many states, over 10 states, improve their background check laws. At the same time, you know, we're seeing what's called, in some places, red flags law or a gun violence restraining order, right? This is particularly relevant to, I think, the Parkland shooting in that this new kind of policy on a state level would help give families and members of law enforcement an ability to petition a judge to temporarily remove someone's ability to own and buy guns. So it's giving families who are trying to find something to do to intervene another mechanism to help prevent you know, gun from falling into a dangerous hand. Because right now they have to kind of wait for a criminal activity or an involuntarily civil commitment. These are really high bars. And so this gun violence restraining order, or the red flags law that I think 4 states have on the books and 18 states currently have pending in their own state capitals, would help kind of bring a new way for parents who are concerned about their children to keep them, help them separate from guns. So that's a really important issue. But, you know, we also in the federal level need to make sure that, you know, dating partners are included in the domestic violence law, right? It makes no sense that, you know, you have to be a cohabitating spouse in order for you to be restricted from purchasing guns because you committed domestic violence. So that's another big thing. And, you know, we have to make sure that there are penalties on the books that would make it make it, have more, how should I say this? I'm trying to struggle for the word, sorry. Have more teeth behind keeping the guns locked and stored safely at home so that young children can't get access to them, right? People think that, what a parent experiences that with when a kid getting access to a gun and harming themselves or their friends is worse enough. But we've seen that, without these laws in the books, it has not seem to make an impact. So we have to do something different in that regard with keeping our kids and access to guns separate.
Gun locks, you should be responsible legally.
Absolutely. All of this is around being responsible. That's really what this is, right? It's about trying to do the things that make simple common sense. And so this is not a manifestation to try to ultimately take guns from everybody or remove guns from all of Americans, right? That's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has decided it's unrealistic. There are 300 million guns in America already, and it's really unnecessary. We can do these things without having to get even close to those scenarios that we're being accused of and still make a meaningful reduction in the number of people who are shot and killed in this country every single year.
Excellent point. Any sort of laws or policy changes you want to see happen, Sarah?
I agree with everything that Colin said, and I think Colin's really good at talking about policy right now. What I've been working on day in and day out since last week is specifically the youth mobilization, that's really where my sight is set. There are so many people who are working every hour of every day right now, especially young people, to organize their communities. It's something that I've never seen before at this level that it is at right now.
The political will is so key, huh?
It is, and I think that, I recently saw a number that right now there are over 350,000 enrolled high school students in Florida who by 2020 election will be able to vote. And President Trump won Florida by 112,000 votes approximately. Students know that they can be the power of change. And right now, I think in this Trump era, in this time of Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement and gun violence prevention, there's so much energy among young people, among the generation below me, Generation Z, and the millennial generation. And I am so excited right now by what I'm seeing. Even just yesterday, I was at the White House. There was, I'm sure you saw it, it really was everywhere. There was a student-led lie-in in front of the White House. There were dozens and dozens of middle school, high school, college-age students who were lying on the ground to represent the young people that have been shot and killed in Parkland and everywhere else. And the energy that I saw from those students was incredible. And I think right now, we need to focus on, from an organizing perspective, making sure that these students in high schools and in colleges have the tools and resources and connections that they need to make a difference in their communities. I think, right now there are students who are finding other community organizations that have existed for years and years already that they can tap into, and that's something that's really exciting for me that I'm going to keep working on.
Let me tell you all this. I got to shout out every town. They've been doing good work. Every town, let me say to Byrne Craig, Abigail Hurst, and Stacy Radner. You guys rock.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Right now, so they have a few different initiatives. Colin, in terms of organizing, Colin mentioned the Survivor Network. Of course, there's Moms Demand Action.
Moms Demand Action. Love the moms.
And they also have been working on trying to kick off an Educators for Gun Sense, an Educators Demand Action and a Students Demand Action. And if students are listening to this and are interested in plugging in, there are going to be some actions later this week, so text students to 64433. But I think, even looking at...
What did you just say? I don't quite hear that.
If you text students to 64433, then you can tap in. And I also wanted to mention, in terms of this grassroots mobilization, Moms Demand Action has been doing incredible work on the ground level in the grassroots for years now. This is actually their 5-year anniversary. But this week alone, they have seen an unbelievable spike in attendance in their general meetings. In Maine, in Connecticut, in North Carolina, in San Diego, in West Virginia, in places that they usually have maybe 20 to 50 members coming per week to their monthly or per month for their meetings, they're having to all change venues because so many people are signing up. In each of the places I just named, they've had over 200 people at their weekly meetings. So right now we're seeing numbers like we've never seen before.
Well, that's good. We got to get folks engaged, organized, so we can make the change.
Yep.
Heather, we got some folks involved, huh?
We do, and
Calling
if
in.
people in our audience have questions, I'm happy to come to you and let you ask those questions. And we also have some questions from our social media audience, but I think we'll start here with the audience.
Okay, let's do it.
My question for you is, what advice would you give people who see, stuff on the news and want to affect change?
People are revved up and they want to do something.
Yeah,
What
I
do
think,
they do first? Should they call that number?
I think they should. So another number that you can text if you're not a student is READY to the same number, 64433, and somebody from your local Moms Demand Action chapter will reach out to you to get in touch and get you involved. But there are also so many other community-based organizations around the country, in cities around the country, that are doing really important local work as well as policy work. So I would say try and look up, research some organizations that are around you, and tap into that. If there truly isn't an organization, or if for some reason you can't text READY to 64433, then I would say do what I did when I was in high school, which is get a group of friends together who agree with you, who are outraged right now, and start something on your own.
Start something.
Absolutely. I mean, there will be a network of people in your state, whoever's watching this, wherever they are, that are already doing this good work, right?
Yeah,
That are going to
yeah.
the state capitol, that are organizing things, right? They might not be in your corner of the state, perhaps, then that's the opportunity for you to start that new local chapter and get people together and have that conversation. Because, like I said earlier, this is a marathon, right? This is going to require some basic civic engagement, some fundamental grassroots activism that's going to take years and years and years to see the significant public safety change that we so badly need, right? And that's going to be multiple election cycles. That's going to require multiple state legislative sessions and big votes in Congress. So, this is something that is so badly overdue, and there's not like a lack of things to do here, right?
Right.
Honestly, it's kind of so much like there's too much to do at one time. How do we even
And
how
one
do
of
we
the things I
organize
hear
it?
you saying, Colin, is when we get background checks, we're not stopping there.
No.
There's more to do. It amazed me that the Center for Disease Control can't really study gun violence. This is crazy. We don't even want to know what the numbers are. Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's get some more folks involved.
Sure. We have another audience question.
Hi. So a couple of members of my family donate to the NRA monthly. How can I convince them not to donate to the NRA?
Good question. Yeah, I will say this about this. There's a lot of folks who are members of the NRA who don't approve of what the leaders of the NRA are doing.
Absolutely.
What do y'all think about that?
Absolutely. We say that the NRA of today is not your grandfather's NRA anymore, right? This is not a membership organization that supports, the average gun owner and sportsman. This is a front for the industry that helps to promote policies that help their bottom line and help sell more guns, fundamentally. So, we pulled NRA members on all these big issues that we kind of got into. And they're all there with the American public. They understand that this stuff makes sense, right? But there's that disconnect between the leadership and their membership. So, I think it's really having a conversation with those family members to say, what is it that is, supports, do you support the idea of background checks as well, right? Because that's something that I think we can all agree on. And it's going to be some of those, funny, awkward Thanksgiving Day conversations, right? About this issue that I think is going to be part of what helps move the needle and changes that culture and that mindset before people realize that, wow, what's being done on my behalf is actually not accurate of what I believe in, and I want to actually see something done. So, there are so many gun owners who are not members of the NRA who come to the same events that we do and speak out and support, right? Like yourself,
I'm one of them.
and gun owners do not need to be and should not and aren't largely demonized, right? There is, that shouldn't be the case, right?
Let me tell you, Colin, as a person who, I hunt you guys, I do that. I don't see any reason why not to have background checks. I don't see any reason why not to lock those guns. I think you should be legally required to do it. I don't see any reason why I don't need a high-capacity magazine to go after some turkeys, right? In fact, if you're any kind of a real turkey hunter, you go out there with one shotgun shell and you should be fine, right? My point is, they're not speaking for hunters, sports people. They're trying to sell more guns. Right now they're trying to sell silencers.
Yep.
They're trying to sell that. What happened to the whole bump stock thing? You know, they sounded like they might be willing to pull that, but then they said not so fast.
Right.
Yep.
These people, it's not about the right to bear arms. It's about the right to sell arms.
Yep.
Right.
That is what's going on, and we have got to put safety first and not somebody else's just mad seeking of.
I think, yeah, and I think right now is a moment where if you do have members of your family or close friends who are members of the NRA, who you know support the NRA or donate, now is that moment where it is your responsibility to have that difficult conversation that Colin was talking about. But also it's our responsibility generally to separate NRA from gun owner.
Right.
There are way more gun owners, responsible gun owners in the United States than there are NRA members. And if we can successfully separate those two things from one another, it'll be much easier to show the country, you know, truly what the NRA is doing and what they've done.
And, you know, if you watch the NRA videos that they put out about this issue, right, it's not even about guns anymore. This is hardcore identity politics and identity issues. That's, you know, they're attacking you know, journalists who are covering this issue. They are attacking, you know, it's all framed as, you know, this is someone who's conspiring to come into your home and undo all the things that you hold dear, right? And the way that they message that way, that's how they get people to call their members of Congress day in and day out and show up at those subcommittee hearings and incite that fear about this bigger fear, not about the nuances of policy that they're all, you know, members support like we do, right? They kind of frame it as this other big nasty thing that's attacking their way of life and who they are as an individual. And that has, you know, to their credit, they have been incredibly effective at building that hardcore constituency base that thinks gun rights issues are a 10 out of 10 of importance. And our side, the gun safety side, has to build that same constituency where gun safety and gun violence prevention is a 10 out of 10 of importance, and people will vote for candidates who support this issue. And if they don't get their vote. Simple as that. This is the single issue voting block that they've built that we are now matching, right? And that takes time, and that's why it's so great to see those, you know, those meetings of new members of Moms Demand Action filled with people, right? Because that's the kind of missing piece in all this. We can match the dollars, we can match the, you know, the airtime, right? But if we don't have those bodies in those rooms casting those votes, right? We're ultimately going to be having this conversation again and again and again.
Well, I think that was spot on. What else we got, Heather?
I think we have time for one more question, and this is actually one that we've seen a lot of over the past few days, and I'm hoping you guys can help kind of correct the record a little bit. This question comes from Rick on Twitter, who says, why is no one talking about guards in schools or checkpoints or screenings? If it were an airport or a courthouse, they would have them, so why not a school?
Good.
I personally don't want to see a school as a militarized zone. I don't think we have to do that. What the NRA solution is to have teachers in the classroom have guns.
Yeah,
they want your mom to be packing in the second grade class.
This is a really difficult question for me because this is something that we got immediately actually messaged first from the NRA towards Newtown after the shooting in our town. But we did have guards at Sandy Hook, and Columbine had armed guards in Columbine.
Right.
And first of all, I don't think that, like you said, schools should be places where guns are at all. I think schools should be places of sanctuaries of safety and learning and education. They shouldn't be militarized. Students shouldn't have to walk into school wondering if today is the day that they'll be next or where they're going to hide if a shooter comes into their classroom, which I can tell you is something that countless students around the country that I talk to think about every single day.
Oh, yeah.
And teachers shouldn't have to walk into their place of work and wonder if today they're going to have to be a human shield and have to be called a hero, and that their name will be known everywhere because a shooter came to their school today. That's just insane that this is the mindset that educators and students have to have today. Students have to go through lockdown drills. We have to be educated from the time that we're 8 years old or younger that sometimes bad people come to your school and try to commit violence, so you have to go hide in this corner. This is the United States, and we are telling our children in schools around the country that we can't do more than we are doing now to keep them from being killed in their classrooms, and that is unacceptable. And like right now, the students in Florida are doing everything that they can to tell people what that day was like in Parkland. They are telling their stories. They are giving content warnings because it is very difficult to read what they saw and what they witnessed and what they heard. But it is critical that they continue sharing those stories, because these shootings, this gun violence, whether it's mass shootings, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's suicides, we get, bogged down by policy, and that's really, really important. And those conversations need to be had. But first and foremost, this is about people dying.
Yes.
And we need to continue messaging in that way, because this is about our students, our future being killed in their classrooms, and that is unacceptable in the United States.
Thank you for that, Sarah. That's right on. Colin, you want to talk about this?
I would just add to that. Sarah's spot on with all of that, right? To suggest that, we shouldn't do gun laws improvements, we should really put a gun in every school and increase student safety. It'd sell more guns for them. That's suggesting that, there's nothing we can do. We've tried everything else, and so we're just going to have to kind of basically shoot them first before they shoot us. That is a reality that I think all of us reject. And if this is the land of the free, having our academic institutions like that is not a free society that people are living in. If we have to feel walking around with every single person a gun on their hip is somehow promoting a free society, that is the opposite. That you feel like you can't walk down the street without a piece of metal on your side, right? That is the opposite way to think about this issue. We have to do more in advance to stop these dangerous situations from coming together, which we know we can do, and we haven't really tried yet. Then, only after massive work is done in there, and then you could possibly consider looking at something else. But suggesting that that's the first step we have to take, I think, is just missing the point entirely, and just kind of throwing up and admitting defeat that there's nothing we can do, and we have to reject that on its face.
I'll agree.
Sorry,
Sarah?
I just have one other thing to add, that I think the argument about armed guards and armed teachers also plays into the hands of the NRA talking point that good guys with guns always stop bad guys with guns. That, if there's a good guy with a gun standing at the door in every school, then they must be able to stop the next shooter that comes by. And I think statistically, there are just countless studies that show that statistically that's not true. That's not how, in real life, violence and anti-gun violence actually works. Police officers countless times say, no, when you're in a crisis situation, when you are face-to-face with a shooter, so much is happening in your own body, in their bodies, in their brain chemical, just so much is going on in that situation that it's not just this black and white, this good person is obviously going to stop this bad person. That's coming from movies, that's coming from Call of Duty, that's coming from the NRA, and that's not realistic at all.
And just remember, if they had their way, the end result would be more gun sales for them.
Right, exactly.
That's what it would be.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be anyone being any safer. It is exactly the wrong thing.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly the wrong thing, but it's self-serving for certain people.
Absolutely.
So we're against that. Let me just say, look, we've done many episodes of Democrats Live, and the working concept is that the Democratic Party is really for the American people. This is not just some partisan thing we do here. We believe the Democratic Party is an agent of change that will make people's lives better. That's the whole concept. So in order for you guys to come here today to talk about these deeply personal, heart-rending moments of your lives is a tremendously generous thing to do, because nobody would blame you if you said, look, this tragedy happened to me, man, I'm just trying to mind my own business and heal. But what you have done is said, you know what, yes, I was in a shooting incident, could have lost my life. Yes, my mother was in the most horrendous moment anybody can imagine, but we're gonna respond by doing something. And that's here for me, that's right in the heart. And for the young people at Parkland who are organizing, who are pulling people together, who are mobilizing, I say thank you to them. And for the organizations that have been out there for years, Everytown, Moms Demand Action, Gun Sense, all of those guys, every one of them, thank them for being there so that a group of young people who get activated have something to plug into.
Yeah.
So thank for them. And look, you know, it's important, and I think we've tried to make the point today that, look, mass shootings are horrendous. They make the news, as they should, but so much of gun murder and gun deaths happen one-on-one in the streets of our town, happen in homes with domestic violence, happen with people who are commit suicide because they, you know, like they say, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. You know, and it happens when guns are not secured and children, you know, mess with them and end up getting killed. This is not a black issue. It's not a white issue. It's not a suburban issue. It's not an urban issue. It is all of our issue, and we have to do something about it, and we have to do something about it now.
Absolutely.
So on behalf of the Democratic Party, our chair, Tom Perez, and our team here, Kat Skiles, Kayla Jeffers, Sheila Reed, Mitch Malaski, and Kayla Mitchell, we just want to say thank you guys for being as awesome as you are. We're with you. And we'll see you next time on Democrats Live.
Thank you.
Thanks.